Back to the Autopen scandal. Anthony Bernal is Jill Biden's guy. He originally said he would testify, and then he's retracting that, chickening out, hiding, so he's going to get subpoenaed. Welcome to Doug in Exile, as we have been uncovering the Autopen scandal for over a year. I hope you've subscribed so you don't miss out on this kind of news. We may not always be right, but we're always first. All right, welcome. Let's watch.
Hey guys, that's right. Jill Biden's right-hand man, Anthony Bernal, is refusing to appear before the House Oversight Committee today. Bernal is known for being Jill Biden's quote-unquote work husband, and he said yesterday that
Look at this guy. Guilty. There doesn't need to be a trial. That's the face of a guilty man. That's my opinion on it.
Would not sit down for a closed-door interview with the committee. His decision comes after lawmakers say he previously agreed to do so. Committee Chairman James Comer putting out this statement saying, quote, now that the White House has waived executive privilege, it is abundantly clear that Anthony Bernal, Jill Biden's so-called work husband, never intended to be transparent about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. I will promptly issue a subpoena to compel Anthony Bernal's testimony before the committee. But former Biden aide Neera Tanden did testify to the committee on Tuesday, and a source confirmed to Fox that she did admit to being authorized to direct Autopen signatures. Now, that Autopen replicated Biden's signature on documents like pardons, memos, and more, but Tanden was not sure who gave the final approval. A new Fox News poll shows that 52% of Americans believe it's important for Congress to investigate the use of Biden's Autopen, and 50% want to investigate Biden advisors who made key decisions. Meanwhile, the committee is still waiting to hear from Biden's former doctor, Kevin O'Connor, in addition to two other former advisors. President Trump has also instructed the Justice Department to launch a separate investigation into the alleged cover-up. Guys.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get these guys. Guys, it's all falling apart. Once they start ratting each other out, you just got to pin them against the wall. You got to shake them down a little bit. Good cop, bad cop. And then you get the testimony you need, but mostly you need them to rat each other out. We're going to get to more of that in just a minute. Here's James Comer's official Twitter feed where he has the documents up. Signed, sealed, and delivered, he writes, Jill Biden's work husband. Why do you imply that she has another husband? What was his job on Jill Biden if he was her work husband? Probably not to mow their yard. Jill Biden's work husband, Anthony Bernal, he's the guy that has the guilty face, must appear before GOP oversight. Let the subpoena send a clear message to Biden's inner circle. We will stop at nothing to expose the truth about Joe Biden's decline and unauthorized use of the Autopen. There's the subpoena. Signed down there by Comer. For Anthony Bernal, you're going to come in and you're going to get interviewed and shaken down. Okay, now here's that gal once again that they talked about earlier. This is Kyle Becker over on Explain America. Here's the White House staffer who is really running the Biden presidency campaign, Neera Tanden. By the way, you guys have seen this girl before. I'm going to show you where she's showing up because I didn't recognize her at first. And then my pal here, Nerk News, is sitting right over there helping me out. And he does a lot of Scott Jennings stuff. You'll recognize her in a minute.
A brief comment. Thank you. I just spoke with the House Oversight Committee, Majority and Minority Council. I answered every question, was pleased to discuss my public service, and it was a thorough process, and I'm glad I answered every question.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Look at this face. Guilty. Also guilty. You know, she was doing all that words. And you know what my spider senses were saying? All I could hear, it was like translated. Guilty, guilty, guilty. I'm guilty. I did it. I'm guilty. Don't send me to jail.
Was there an effort to disguise President Biden's condition?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And off she goes. Goodbye, everybody. That's all you're going to get. Now, you've seen her before. I'm just going to show you this quick clip. This is a Scott Jennings clip. In case you don't recognize her, that's her going toe-to-toe with Scott Jennings. Look at her. You've seen her before.
Where soldiers are possibly lost. It is pretty inexcusable that he has not been briefed and he can't speak to it.
And what's worse, a president not having all the information he needs to make a legitimate comment, so he holds back in the moment before being ready to make a comment, or, I don't know, willfully lying to the American people about the condition of the President of the United States.
Oh, look at the leaning, look at the face, the painful face. Leaning and learning about what? She, as soon as this clip was over, she went right back and started signing on behalf of the president all those executive orders. This is probably the lady that released all those murderers. Who knows what? And Biden had no idea. She's going, I'm running the country. Little did you guys know that a CNN spokesperson, a talent that Scott Jennings gone against, that she is the person that all those Democrats voted for. They voted for Joe Biden, but really, she is executing her garbage authority to overthrow the country so that no one will know about Biden's decline. She's like, oh, thank goodness he's a vegetable, so I can execute my authority. No one knows who the president was yet. She won't tell you even. That's all I want to know. Who was the president? Who was in charge? Here's more on that from these people who I don't know who they are over on Newsmax.
All right, so if Biden's inner circle is not guilty of covering up his mental decline and his shady use of the Autopen, they are doing a terrible job of acting like it.
Yeah, they sure are, right? I mean, that's something that I think James Comer has been really interested in trying to uncover, just who was running the country. And it's a question that none of us still have any answers to, right? I mean, Neera Tanden said that she was using the Autopen, that she was authorized by people who were not necessarily Joe Biden to do that. And I think it's important to ask who else was doing that and exactly what documents were these that were signed and implemented across the United States that were not, authorized and implemented by the president.
Yeah, which ones were authorized by that CNN spokeslady?
Who's doing this? And that is, of course, what Comer is trying to uncover.
I think there's something else we can agree upon here, Libby, and that is that the term work husband and work wife is just ick.
Yeah, it's gross. That was my first response too. Work husband, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's super cringe, right? I mean, and I think that's certainly something that spouses at home don't want to hear about either. No. That you have someone at work that you're confiding in more, that you're taking all your lunches with, that you're winking at across the room when something weird happens. That's, I think that's a kind of emotional cheating that we shouldn't be dealing with here.
Yeah, if my wife has another work husband at work, I'd kind of like to know who that guy is so I could take care of him in the parking lot. And the beloved Miss Tenaple would not tolerate me having a work wife. Those are sacred terms. And of course, the Bidens, they're liberals. These are liberals are feminists, and that means that they absolutely despise traditional roles of husbands and wives and the idea that that is exclusive and the idea that that is sacred. So they disrespect it even with their naming conventions as they throw America under the bus and have a CNN host running the country. Here's more from Ted Cruz on the Autopen, where you see a real difference. Once the Autopen starts going, you'll see what happens. Biden's policy changed because he was no longer in charge of the country.
The first Autopen executive order was issued on July 15th, 2022. After that day, 100% of the executive orders issued in 2022 were signed by an Autopen.
By that lady. Remember, that lady on CNN, she is the one that ran the Autopen from 2021 to 2023 for 2 years. So she would have been the one running that 100% of the Autopen, at least one of the people doing it.
In 2023, Biden issued 24 executive orders. 16 were Autopenned. In 2024, Biden issued 19. 14 were Autopenned. In 2025, Biden issued 14 executive orders. Every single one was Autopen.
Because he was in a coma. That means CNN was probably the president of the United States. Thank goodness they lost because they helped screw the country into the ground and helped deliver Trump a win. How ironic. Thank you, CNN, for destroying your own party.
If an executive order is issued and a staffer Autopens it without the president's authorization, is that executive order legally binding?
No.
And if a pardon is issued from the president of the United States and a staffer Autopens it without the president's authorization, is that pardon legally binding?
No.
Under the Biden White House, the ceremonial song, Hail to the Chief, was effectively replaced with Hail to the Pen.
Hail to CNN.
And it was an outright assault on democracy. And every reporter covering this ought to ask, why doesn't a Democrat care?
Because democracy was on the ballot. Democracy was on the ballot. They really meant, it's weird, when Trump won the election, he secured America a little bit longer from the tyrannical, illegal, scandalous, greatest scandal of American history of CNN rule.
We heard about the moral responsibilities of a staffer. How about an elected senator who knows damn well that if we get into a war and Iran is preparing to fire a nuclear weapon at the United States, that the commander-in-chief is busy playing with his jello and is not competent to defend our...
Yeah, maybe MSNBC even took a few turns with the Autopen. Maybe they were the ones that were ruling us. That's why we call her Stephanie Rule. Okay, that's the worst joke I've ever made in my life. Let's do, this is Rep. Scott Perry. Rep. Scott Perry over on Fox Business. Did President Biden ever have any clue about what his Autopen signed, or were his handlers going behind his back all along? That's the only question. Now we have to find out whether or not you voted for him. Nobody voted for Neera Tanden of CNN or anyone else complicit. That's one thing we do know. No one would vote for her. It's terrible. Just imagine if the reciprocal happened on the Republican Party and we had Scott Jennings running the Autopen. Can you imagine? First of all, America would be in pretty good shape if Scott Jennings was handling, but it would be illegal.
Public service or Biden service, Congressman? What did you find out that you can tell us?
Well, we're not sure yet. And quite honestly, let's face it, it's going to be difficult to get candid and likely truthful answers. These folks know that we're looking at them in the context of, did Joe Biden actually have any clue about what the Autopen was signing, or were they doing it on his behalf?
Well, you aren't going to get honest answers because they're Democrats, they're liberals, they're largely atheistic materialists. They largely don't believe in the category of immaterial truth, of truth. Does anything that doesn't exist, if you can't feel it, taste it, touch it, which is something that the truth lives in that space, it's not something you can weigh. They literally don't believe in it. That's why they have such a problem giving honest answers. They don't believe in an honest answer. Living, breathing Constitution. They go, words don't have fixed meaning. They can just make up whatever. They're not going to get in trouble. They don't even believe in telling the truth. They believe in just whatever brings us more power is what is the truth, including if I have to tell a lie to secure that.
And, everybody's going to hunker down. Everybody's going to be tight-lipped about that. And so it's going to be hard to determine. I mean, Joe has already said that, he knew all of this stuff, but we know that he signed Hunter's pardon, but with his own hand. Mm-hmm. But the other ones were Autopen. So we don't know if he really knows all these people. And quite honestly, even when they were standing right in front of him, I'm not saying this to be mean, but he couldn't even identify his own Secretary of Defense on occasion, or people that he had appointed to these very high-level positions. He
couldn't remember when his own son, Beau Biden, died. He couldn't remember the year. He couldn't remember specifics. So that right now, even if you brought Biden in and subpoenaed him and put him in on the witness stand and say, do you remember using the Autopen? He's a vegetable, so he'd go, I don't know. Or if he said, I know that I didn't sign the Autopen. I know I didn't do it. Then watch the Democrats. They would all flip their story and say, he is so mentally incompetent that he can't remember what he did. I guarantee you they would change their story. That's how it works, guys. That's how this works. Two-tiered justice system, no belief in truth, no belief in justice. It never applies to the Democrats to them the same way it applies to us. This is all a giant shell game. In fact, this is all a giant fraud that we're all asked to participate in, and we have to sit there and nod as if our political system is real and working. The justice system is working. American Constitution is working. The votes are working. It's a clown show. It's a joke. That's the whole Democrats' purpose, is they're like, just give us power, screw all this rule of law stuff. They don't care.
But it's reality. And what I think this is going to show, whether it's admitted or not, or whether it's provable or not, the people that were actually in charge of the country for the last 4 years, because many of my bosses, many of my constituents would come up to me. They probably came up to you guys as well and said, who's actually running the country? Well, I think those are the people that you're going to see paraded in front of the Oversight Committee attorneys over the next weeks and days here. We're going to be deposed on this.
And we need to find out who, if anyone, will claim to have gotten a green light from Joe Biden to run the Autopen. That's what we need to find out. That's the evidence we're looking for. And just the absence of evidence does not tell me much. I want to know names, and I will get them for you when they show up. You guys got to subscribe. I'm going to stay on this story till the bitter end. If we find anything out, or they're just releasing, we couldn't find anything. Doug in Exile, and I thank you all for the Quad Club that are waiting for that 4th video to drop coming up next in just a little bit. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Doug in Exile.